Good afternoon and welcome back to gridXdays. Hope you had a nice lunch break, and we are now diving into our third block of the event, which focuses on the conditions or tools that we really need to enable widespread clean energy. And this next session will focus on the platform economy and sustainable energy. So a platform can be described as an intermediary between different users or user groups. Platforms have emerged in many industries, often turning existing structures on their heads. And they really change the roles of various players and the relationships between them. Platform markets in the energy industry might help us to increase coordination and unlock new flexibility potential. To find out if this is true and what other roles and potential they have, we have a range of experts with us, starting with Simon Koopman, one of the co-founders and CEO of Envelio, which provides a smart grid software platform for grid operators based on innovative optimization and machine learning algorithms. Prior to Envelio, Simon received his diploma and PhD from RWTH Aachen, where he also headed the Distributed Energy Systems Research Group. Thank you for joining us today, Simon.
Hi everybody, and very happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Good. Joining him, we also have Sebastian Wagner, an experienced software expert within the clean tech space, currently working as Senior Product Specialist of E-Mobility and Renewables at SAP. Prior to joining SAP, he worked at Entelios, Digital Energy Solutions, and Caneva. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here. Hi, Greta.
Good to hear. We also have our very own Andreas Booke, or Andy, the co-founder and managing director of gridX. Before founding gridX, he worked on new technology and wireless protocols in industry and research for 5 years. And he's passionate about building a strong team with cutting-edge technology to solve the most complex problems of our time. Andy, welcome.
Thanks, Greta. Pleasure to be here. Pretty much a home game today, but really excited about that session and looking forward to it.
Good, I am as well, and I hope our viewers are too. So, kicking off the questions, why have platforms increased in prevalence in the energy industry in recent years, and how does your company use platforms? Sebastian, you can start.
Since 2011, we have this energy transition here in Germany, and where we have the space for developing new technology, and we have this renewable change with decentralized energy assets like PV and battery. And for example, also electric mobility plays an important role. So we have a big space for new business models. So like companies we just heard gridX are in with, for example, energy management and energy services, complete new type of services, and also companies like envelio, with VPP or trading technology, opening the gate to the energy markets. And we at SAP work closely together with companies like gridX, for example, or other startups to implement them on our platform and offering a full service bundle for our end users, because in the end, we do not invent everything by our own. We need strong partner out of this ecosystem.
And Simon, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think I already agree in many points. So I think the energy transition leads to a big decentralization of the entire energy system. And this decentralization requires platform approaches, because it's not enough anymore if you have isolated data silos that are not communicating with each other, because then all of the processes are not really enabled to handle the massive amounts of renewables that we have to integrate into the grids and into the markets. And so that's why I think, there's no way around creating more and more platforms and connecting different systems more and more to each other, so that we can have a higher level of automation. And at Envelio, we focus very much on the grid as one of the key pieces of the puzzle for the energy transition. And with our intelligent grid platform, we pretty much do exactly that. We bring isolated data silos together on the grid side to enable really a full digital twin of the real grid. And then we deploy automation applications on top, so that grid connection processes, for example, planning processes, but also operation of grids can be more efficient and ready for high amounts of renewables and charging points, for example.
And Andy, why are platforms so important in the energy industry and at gridX?
I think it's a great question. Also, looking at yesterday, the gridXdays, we learned a lot about the problem. Basically, renewable production has raised a lot, but electricity demand, all in all, has really picked up. It's steeper than the renewables, and I think we can see in some places that the cost, for example, of a kilowatt hour of solar has even gone down to 1 cent per kilowatt hour, which is great. I mean, that's really the goal we all have. But looking at my energy bill, the prices for electricity have not really been going down for me as a consumer. And while technology is really deflationary in terms of prices, and we see that the production of energy, we don't really feel that as a customer with the energy bill we have at home. And I really believe that bridging all of the different sectors, adding to what Sebastian said, basically will allow us to make energy more efficient and thus also allow us as consumers to have lower electricity costs in the end. And that's why I believe platforms are much needed to not only make of renewables really cost efficient, but also the distribution. We need platforms to basically couple all of the different sectors, all of the different technologies, generation demand, and that in the end will do loss for the consumer and all of basically.
And you already touched on this, but can you go a little bit deeper into how platforms advocate for sustainable energy?
Whom do you mean, Greta? Sorry, I didn't get this acoustically.
Sebastian, you can go, What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think absolutely true that platforms and especially the partnering with the strong ecosystem and players like envelio, gridX, or other companies in around Munich or Germany, of course, also in the charging space and in the EV space, helps bringing renewables to the market. And like Simon said, of course, we have huge hours and huge times a day where the grid is really penetrated with huge loads and huge demand of energy, but with a simple with intelligent technology, bringing this demand from the grid to different hours of the day, is simply easy technology where we see that we can match the supply of the renewables with the demand of the people, because in the end it's not a problem if my fully electric company car is charged during the night, if it's from 8 o'clock in the evening until midnight, or if it's in the early morning where wind prices contribute for lower energy prices. So you see in the bundle we need companies like gridX or envelio to offer a full stack bundle for our customers, especially in the corporate field. So I would have platforms. So to say yes, they definitely advocate renewables. Platforms.
And Simon, how do platforms afford new types of engagement with energy assets and other users of the grid?
So I see platforms as really a key enabling technology that we need for the energy transition. And from my perspective, this does not only refer to, let's say, the technical side of things and how you actually manage the physical infrastructure of the grid. So it's important for that as well. But I think there's another layer, and that's more on the business model side. So if you think about what has to happen over the next couple of years, and let's say how many residential solar units we have to put on rooftops and how many storage systems and charging points we have to deploy. So these are really, really big numbers where you end up with several 100,000 of these new units that we have to connect just in Germany. And the same is true for other countries in the world. And in order to make that happen, it doesn't really work anymore if we just have these same processes, for example, for managing grid connections. And here again, the platform technologies can really become an enabler so that business models for residential solar providers, for example, are much enhanced, because the connection process doesn't look like what it looks like today sometimes, but it's really a streamlined and automated process where these type of players don't have to worry about anymore, and where they can just basically run through a standard process that's always the same, and that's really much accelerated. And this kind of enabling, helping factor is, I think, what platforms can bring.
Mm-hmm. And we've just had a question from the audience, which I'll direct to Andy. Is it sustainable to reduce the total cost of ownership and operational costs for oil and gas companies with platforms?
It's a great question. Actually, we also had that internally just recently inside the team, where we discussed about whether we should connect to diesel generators to make them more efficient in the end. And I think it depends on what the idea and what the goal of that company is. I mean, you have large players, Shell, Mobil, BP, Total. I think you can, if you look at them and the activities around renewables, you see a wide gap and big difference between what they're doing, how they approach this. And from my perspective, like, we need all hands on deck, and everything needs to go to renewables as soon and as fast as possible. So whenever we have excess budget to spend on renewables, that's a good thing. If it is something to just cut costs and reduce TCO perspectives, and the money that just gets spent on another fossil fuel-based initiative, that's not going to happen. So I really believe, like, if we, for example, also with Asian, we had a very interesting panel on that yesterday with Thomas and Tristan and Barbara, like, how can regulation help to support that? And for example, if we would basically give the duty to large oil and gas majors to spend some of the profits, or maybe even some of the initiatives, on renewable projects, I think that's a good thing, and then it's definitely worthwhile to support that.
Mm-hmm. And Sebastian, is the platform economy an evolution or a revolution of the traditional energy supplier business model?
In my opinion, it is definitely a revolution, and I think suppliers and utilities, they have a big advantage with it, because in the end, when it comes to new technologies, like Simon mentioned, we need solar panels on every rooftop, or also in the case like we at SAP changing our company fleet to fully electric, our employees get charging stations at home. There will be a tremendous demand for energy at the one side, which is the core business of the utility. And the other side, there's huge collaboration, in my opinion, for technology developed here in Germany by companies like gridX or envelio or Coniva, and there are plenty of companies who developed really technology in combining all these central assets and bringing the possibility that we can install and have a decentralized energy system in the end. So we see that utilities as well and suppliers taking over new roles in that business. Yeah, they are getting into charge point operating. They're getting into VPP, virtual power plant technology. So I think it's a revolution, and the suppliers and the utilities, when they decide to go that way, can only have big advantages in the future. From my standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I definitely want to touch more on the changing relationships and roles of different players. We're just having a fourth member join us now. Jürgen Mayerhofer brings 20 years of experience in the energy industry, and he is currently CEO and co-founder of Enspired, a fully digital energy trading company. Welcome, Jürgen.
Hi from Vienna.
And to throw you straight into the deep end, how do platforms enable the marketization of new domains and activities?
I mean, platform business for us in general is super important. We're kind of, as a fully digital company, rely fully on platforms. So be it in the cloud or developed for our clients. And the business where we come from, algorithmic trading and full automated trading is just possible because of platforms. So I think a lot of businesses facing digitization and automation of processes will go all way long in the same direction. So I think it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And Andy, what kind of network effects do you see in the energy industry, and how are they evolving with the rise of platforms?
So what's really interesting about this time industry for me is the sector coupling. So really you have mobility, we have the heating sector, and of course electricity itself all grow together, and all those domains itself can create network effects. But what's very interesting is that at the same time, right now in the energy industry, all of those different domains are going together, all of the different sectors are going there. And if I look from that, or at that from a solution perspective, I'm not only looking at my electric vehicle or my Tesla anymore, but I try to combine it with my PV or even with my heat pump. So we have strong network effects, because you might just think about a new car, but then the next question is, okay, where does the power actually come from? Should I just use my old nuclear power contract or my coal power contract? No. If you want to basically create or produce your own energy, then you're in the solar space, and same goes for heating. And basically taking all of that together, the sector coupling and having EVs as a very emotional driver for that market is really exciting to be in. And that's where I believe true network effects will unfold and will create like an avalanche that has tremendous positive impact. And I'm really excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Andy, for the end user, it's simply just like you mentioned, getting down the energy prices to that 2 or 1 cent, or in the future maybe for free, like you mentioned.
Right.
Yes.
And
maybe
go for
maybe
it.
Sorry, maybe adding to that also, I think network effects are actually a very nice result of an increasing amount of platforms everywhere, because you can connect platforms, let's say on the grid side and on the virtual power plant side, much easier, and like that you create new opportunities, like I said before, on the business model side, and you really create the opportunity to quickly exchange information and enable these type of new applications. So if I think, for example, about grid services that a virtual power plant can provide, so of course this service is improved the more grids are in a very digital state, where you have them in a platform basically, and it's true for many other examples like that. So an increasing penetration of platforms on in different parts of the energy value chain really helps, I think, to drive also digitization in other parts of the value chain, which is good because we need kind of the full chain to make the energy transition happen.
Yeah, and alongside this, platforms often come with ecosystems. Jürgen, how are ecosystems and partnerships evolving in this changing landscape and in a really highly competitive market?
For us, partnerships are very important, because what we see, we come from a pure trading side. So we work on wholesales market, etc., and we see out of the past that there is people very focused on ancillary services. There is companies focused on behind the meter services. So there is people that can decide if you put your PV generation into a battery or into your car. But I think ultimately in the future, it will only work out if you take the decision, if you use the feed-in tariff, if you put it into the battery, if you buy at the wholesales market, if you aggregate it, put it aggregated into ancillary services. So I think at the moment, there is no company who's really capable of playing all markets behind and in front of the meter, wholesales, ancillary services, because all of them are very specific. So I would assume that in the future, you can only achieve the optimum for the client if just the specialists or experts in their field connect their platforms, exchange data in real time, and gridX does something, and other companies take on a voltage level, maybe steering signals behind the meter, and guys like us just find the best market to sell generation or trade a battery on a short term, maybe, because it all comes down to what Sebastian said before. You need a financial incentive for the clients to do it. They don't do it because purely of energy transition. It'd be nice if they do it, but usually they want to have a cheaper tariff, they want to earn more money, whatever. And I think if a lot of companies work on different platforms with different focus and they connect it, this will finally, what the end consumer needs, fully automated, because we know from the past that an end consumer doesn't care what happens until the electricity gets to their plug. And I think that's then our job with our platforms.
And Sebastian, this is a big question, but who do you think will be the winners and losers in the energy platform era?
Oh, that's really a big question. Yeah, I think who will be the winners? I think that taking this from a global perspective or from a European grid-wide perspective, we have different layers besides all the different players Jürgen mentioned there on the grid side or on the VPP side. We have high restrictions of security, data security, and hosting of the data, as well as it comes especially to data with Jürgen mentioned charge at home, or you charge your company car at home. You have personal related data. So I think there are also big issues beside of that great technology companies we have, and we have an evolving ecosystem since 2011. We need also the power of, I would say, not big players, but of players who can handle also these issues. Yeah, because from a utility perspective, it's also critical issues. We had, for example, a power outage for 2 days here in Munich 2 weeks ago. So there's different requirements from different parties. Yeah, and I think the winner will be who can maybe be part of the ecosystem, or can or has the willingness to also follow the needs of these parties. And in the end, we need those new technologies. We're trying to start it also in SAP App Store, bringing companies like gridX, gridX, Oxygen, and others to our ecosystem for the. Like Jürgen and Simon mentioned, the customer value decides in the end, but all these issues behind are really also very important, therefore, for decision makers to bring it to a scalable option worldwide. And we have great technology. It's energy transition made in Germany, and we can bring it to the world. Yeah, but we have to follow also these topics, I think, to bring it to the next level.
And
maybe if I may add, Rita, I think what's very important, because we talk a lot about platforms, we have different layers on platform. It's a very abstract and very complex term. And with all of the different platforms, it gets even more complex to the end customer. And I think also the winner will be the one who has the ability to integrate them seamlessly for very well-functioning solutions in the end, with a clear customer benefit, because the customer in the end, he won't be the one understanding all the different things that Sebastian at SAP is doing, Simon at envelio, Jürgen at Enspired, we at gridX are doing. It's way too complex for the customer. We need integrated and seamlessly integrated solutions for the end customer. And the one who understands the best will probably win the battle. And I think a pretty good example in smart home, for example, is Apple with Apple HomeKit. They integrate, I don't know how many different providers and manufacturers, and do that very, very well. And I think we have to anticipate something similar in energy to really make it work for the end customer.
Yeah, just to get that point to the end, Greta, and thanks for that, Andy, because completely right. We're trying to bring the mentioned data or the kilowatt hours into the corporate processes. You know, in the end, the kilowatt hours have to be at the electricity bill of the utility, which is a huge customer group of SAP, or in the end, the kilowatt hours of the corporate fleet has to be in the accounting system. Yeah? So that's where we come in. Yeah. Providing all our expertise and process excellence in that area, and bringing the energy and the renewables into the corporate processes. And like you said, Andy, there are of course also smart home companies, who can make it big in the end. So our focus is more the corporate process integration, especially also what Jürgen mentioned. The utilities have to change some processes, implementing VPP technology.
And Seaman,
maybe to that point, I would also add, especially that last point, I think is a very good aspect. So I think winners are can be, from my perspective, the ones who really also embrace the digital transformation and the opportunities that platforms bring. And so this links exactly to what Sebastian just said about changes also in processes within utilities. So I think this is also a key and also a key for them, also linking back to kind of the question of revolution versus evolution. So I think for the utilities, this has been their core business for a while, and for them it's more maybe like an evolution, but I think overall a revolution is going on. So they kind of have to move quick enough in order not to be disrupted by new players that, I mean, you already see coming up in residential solar or home storage and so on. And so I think whoever embraces the opportunities that platforms bring and that digital transformation brings, moving away from silos to a seamless integration, that's the key. Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it is a disruption. So Jürgen, how do you think regulators view the rise of platform players?
I recently talked to one regulator. I think in general, they like innovation, they like that something is happening, but I see one big issue, that they usually slower than the market needs the change. So I think that slightly connects with what Sebastian says. So especially when it comes to regulation, also big players have a different level than startups, innovative ones. You see already within Europe differences when it comes to battery storage integration, etc. If you look at the UK, if you look at continental Europe, there is EU regulations from flexible tariffs to roles for aggregators. That's all smart ideas, but the problem is that so they see it, but they're just too slow. If we just wait for all of this stuff to be implemented locally, so there's maybe differences. So I have no experience that regulators have a problem with the platform business. It's rather the pace that we try to set as innovative players, and kind of I think we stress out regulators sometimes with a lot of picky questions and requests and sandboxes that we want to have, etc.
Yeah, completely right, Jürgen. I have to get that point. You say because it's critical infrastructure, but we see that TSO and DSOs, they are taking part in new projects, and companies like Sonnen, for example, proved to get the pre-qualification for TenneT here in Germany. So I would not say they're against it, and it's really a good point what you say. Maybe we are a little bit too fast for them at the moment, and they have just a different view from a security point of view. Is the grid ready for all these renewables in the end?
We have a question from the audience. Do centralized platforms have a future, considering the rise of fully decentralized solutions such as blockchain? Andy, what do you think of that?
Yeah, also people like gridX know that I'm a pretty big blockchain fan, but I'm not always a blockchain fan to use it for all the different scenarios. And I think especially in energy, it is really needed for prosperity, and everything that we have in Germany needs to be very stable in terms of power supply. Blockchain could be a solution for that, but the advantages that it brings, that you basically have the proof decentralized, stored, and so on, is nothing really that I see as a problem currently in the industry, at least not in the energy industry. And so while I'm a big believer in blockchain and what the use cases are, I don't necessarily see it in energy, and rather think that someone, if like in my streets, the lights go out, I want to be able to call the utility and ask why that's happening. And I would rather not look on the blockchain of who was the last validator of a node. And I think there needs to be some responsibility and authority with centralized systems for system critical infrastructure. And that's why I believe blockchain is great, but not necessarily in energy.
Any other opinions on that?
I'm not really an expert of blockchain technology, so I don't have any comments on that. What I hear within from our experts, it's a little bit like from that standpoint Andy just mentioned. So no comments from my side.
Okay.
Well, I think it's very use case dependent, like Andy also stated. So I think you can find some use cases also in energy that might make sense with blockchain, but I think it's not everything. And I fully agree that grid operation is probably not a good use case for it, because you kind of need the central and decentral supervision of the grid on different levels for the infrastructure. Where I do see it maybe as an interesting option could be with regard to smart contracts in bringing producers and consumers together. So kind of cutting out the utility as the intermediary in just regular energy sales, let's say. So I think that kind of use case I could imagine coming up sometime in the future. But even then, in this kind of scenario, you still need kind of a central validator next to that on the technical side, because the physics of the grid are still the same, and so it doesn't work for everything, but can be working for some use cases.
And Sebastian, does an industry giant like SAP view startups as an opportunity or a threat?
For us, of course, it's an opportunity. Like I mentioned several times, we're working together with startups in that space and bringing them on our platform, SAP.io, for example, Oxygen Technologies and other companies. Yeah, I think gridX also applied for it, and others will follow. Building up an ecosystem for energy, renewables, and electric mobility, and in the end. For us, it's important to enable our customer to have this kind of business models, what Jürgen and also Simon mentioned, prosumers. Companies offer the technology stack for it. We have our big issue, and what's really important from our side is bringing, like I mentioned it before, this data and IoT data and also cloud data, collecting them and bring them into the process of companies, because in the end it's important for them to operate their daily business, to get the renewable kilowatt hours for their CO2 reporting upwards to the management in our cloud tools, to get the energy to the bill of the corporate car drivers, and the utilities have to bring the renewables to the end customer's bill. So in the end, by making strong bundles together with companies out of this ecosystem, we will have a tremendous shift, I think, in the future, and it really will help bring the energy transition to a success, in my opinion. So for us, it's a complete advantage working together, with the new players, and it's not a threat for us.
Also, Greta, maybe perspective from a startup. I mean, we had gridX. We started as a B2C company when we were approached by larger B2B companies, and what basically made us switch was the magnitude and the scalability and the impact that large companies can bring. I mean, there are utilities out there with tens or even 50 million customers. SAP is such a large customer base from commercial side of things. So if you're talking about impact that you as a startup can have, of course, you can try it on your own, but I'm a firm believer in making that happen with a large partner, and to really anticipate on the advantages that, let's say, a large corporate has with the scalability and trust in the market and the agility and innovation of a startup. I think we really need to work on solutions together to make energy transition happening and to fight against climate change. And I think we are not in that luxury position to just try if someone can do it on your own or not, but rather look at that holistically, because like the world is on the on the edge, and we need to change, and we need to find solutions.
Mm. And we've had a question from the audience. Jürgen, do you think large utilities will be willing to make themselves dependent on the use of third-party central energy platforms?
That's what they already do, I think. It's always a trade-off between, I mean, we're very specialized on short-term trading, you know, and we're now 13 people. And if you look at the biggest utilities in Europe, they usually have just a fraction of size assigned to this short-term trading topic. So I think you always have this trade-off as a big player. Do I get super laser-focused experience from a startup, be it gridX, be it whoever, or do I do it myself? But I already see that big companies do it because, it's a simple calculation. You need at least 7-8 people for 24/7 operations. If you say you buy external software, so there is kind of this mix of not outsourcing it, but buying software, which is on the other hand nothing else than you buy external know-how in the form of source code. So you always need the external vendor to adapt something or wait for their innovation. So you're kind of dependent anyway. So still, if people think, okay, I just bought this SaaS solution somewhere, they're still dependent with their innovation on how innovative the software vendor is in the next release. And if they start or if they stop developing new features, you're just stuck. So I think they're all more dependent that they would think or like to have. And especially when I think of gridX or smart charging services or what we do, energy trading as a service, it's a strategic decision, and we have customers, big ones, so I know that this is an option.
And Simon, do you think this relationship will change in the future?
Well, I think a trend that we also do see in our customer base is that kind of a hybrid model might also be worth considering, where you kind of start building up, or where our customers start building up bigger teams and more competences with regard to data science and data engineering themselves, but still combine it with technological building blocks and components that they license from us or also from others to kind of accelerate their internal processes. I think this kind of setup, especially for bigger players, could be kind of a valid model moving forward.
And we've had another question from the audience. Andy, what is your view on platforms for PPAs for developers and off-takers?
I really have to admit I'm not an expert on that. So if someone else from the group might want to jump in, feel free. But I'm really not an expert on that topic. I'm sorry, I have to pass that one.
No problem. Does anyone else want to jump in? Okay, on to the next question. So what would be the use cases for artificial intelligence in energy platforms? And on top of that, obviously, there's a lot more technologies that will become really relevant, and they're often used in tandem with platforms such as IoT and things like that. Andy, I think you can definitely answer this one.
Yeah, that's more on my own turf. Happy to answer that. I think we discussed about the complexity before, and like what actions do I actually need to decide on my own if the energy is going from my solar roof in my car, in my battery. Do I need to look at the wholesale prices and make a decision on when to buy, when not to buy? And I really believe that although that's the current state, that will drastically change with having more data, having open platforms, having API access. Then on top of all of that, you can build an AI that anticipates all of that in real time, like every millisecond, to make the best decision for the customer. And I think that's really the next phase we will see, because at a certain point, we will have excess amount of renewable energy. We will come to that point, might take a little bit more time, a little bit longer, but we will come to that point where we'll have excess amounts of energy, of renewable energies and the grid. And then it's more about optimizing on grid prices and so on. And that's where I believe AI will go, and it will go all with the optimization function of the customer. And in the residential customer case, it's always ease of use and, of course, the most CO2 and price-sensitive energy I want to get. And in commercial sites, that can be even a little bit more complex, but I really see lots of applications from AI in those fields coming up in the future.
Yeah, we use it as well for maintenance and repair. You know, if you have a time series out of charging stations or inverters, yeah, you can simply use them for getting to know when there is the next maintenance and repair. Yeah, it's an easy use case, but it's a USP for the customers because facility management is very interested in bringing the right spare parts and so on to the customer side. So we are starting also to adopt those use cases like you mentioned, and yeah, definitely.
And obviously technology is important for everyone here, but Simon, how do you think that platforms, what role do they play in connecting, simplifying or enabling technology?
I would say they're kind of the needed basis. So, I mean, platform is a general term, and I think what is usually behind that is that cloud technologies are there, that you gain a certain amount of flexibility and interface flexibility via APIs, for example, so that you bring better integration. And I think a lot of that is all tailored to actually then achieve a higher degree of automation, so that we can really automate mass processes and accelerate those. And for that, a platform setup where data is connected is the key, and then not just an isolated platform. So that would be maybe then the next data silo, but actually a connected platform that is to a certain degree open and can interact with other solutions.
And as the final question, Jürgen, how do you see platforms and their relationship with technology evolving in the future in the energy market?
As I said in the beginning, I think most things that will be digitized will be moved to platforms in one or the other way, be it our trading processes, be it communication with grid operators, be it communication with charging stations to have a price-wise optimized charging profile. We see a strong focus also on handling data there in a unified way. I mean, we do everything quantitatively, so the data is at the heart of our processes, kind of. And the next step usually is once you have your process automation done, you have cleaned or collected and cleaned your data, then you start out with machine learning tasks, be it support vector machines, be it genetic algorithms. And I think then usually the roadmap is going to more advanced technologies, be it deep neural networks, actor-critic setups, reinforcement learnings. And so this is the roadmap we see ahead, which we also have, and where we're working continuously on it. And then there is a big thing regarding technology, which is explainability when it comes to AI, especially in our world where we trade energy and you have to play according to the rules, and you have compliance and you have market surveillance and regulators. You better tell why you took a trading decision or not. And I think when we go away from regulation to maybe another field, like you want to supply your clients and take smart decisions behind the meter, in front of the meter combined, somebody has to make sure that you know why something happens, you know, and this black box that a lot of people think does not exist. So I think that the end boss of this AI story will be explainability and interpretability for several reasons, because clients ask you what you did with data, regulators ask why you took the decisions, the battery was not charged, your client asks you why didn't you charge the battery, the price was low. So I think that's kind of what happens. First, platforms and automation, focus on data, and then use the tools once you have sorted out the basics, I would say.
Fortunately, that's all we have time for today, but thank you all so much for your really informative answers, and it's really exciting to see what's happening in the energy space, and yeah, excited to see what comes. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Have a good afternoon.
Have a nice day.
It was a pleasure.